I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time. Hello, and welcome to Women Awakening. I'm Cynthia James, and I'm your host, and I get the honor of introducing you to fabulous women who have taken charge in their life. They're change makers, and they want to make a difference on this planet, and they want to support women to stand in their power and own their precious nature. So I do these every week, and we're on Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, Spreaker, Amazon, and we have videos on YouTube. Just subscribe and come back every week and meet an incredible woman. And then if you want to know more about me, just go to cynthiajames.net, and there's lots of stuff there, including a sign up for my newsletter. So I want to introduce you to Sabine Gedeon. I hope I said that right.
Gedeon.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I am so grateful that she's here. She is the founder of She Leads Network, and she knows a thing or two about taking big leaps, navigating major life changes, and looking within to find strength, wisdom, and courage necessary to persevere while in uncharted territory. She shares her knowledge and guides us to become an effective change agent and influencer in our own life and career. Sabine, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it is my honor, Cynthia. Thank you for having me.
Well, first of all, I want to just talk about how you grew up. You know, a lot of people think that the women that come on this show just came in with, everything laid at their feet and they just stepped into their fullness. And most of us, that is not the case. So how did you grow up? Where did you grow up?
Oh, the complete opposite. So I was actually born in Haiti. And for those who don't know where Haiti is, it's off the coast of Florida, shares the island with Dominican Republic, and as the media likes to share, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, right? And so, but it wasn't always that way. We're actually the first Black nation or African nation to gain our independence in 1804. So we started the game, if you will, for those who are enslaved to have freedom. However, that's not the reality now today. So, born in Haiti, migrated here at the age of 4 to the U.S. and grew up in Connecticut. And so, interestingly enough, growing up, I had siblings that were still back in Haiti, family that was still back in Haiti. There was a part of me that fully understood where I came from, right? Because obviously of the connection. But there was also a part of me that felt like, oh, I'm in this new country now. Even at a young age, I was like, I'm in this new country. There are these new opportunities, that the sky is the limit, even though that wasn't the life that I was clearly living. So growing up, the baby in the household at the time. So I became the first everything, right? First to go to college, first to step into a boardroom, first to work in corporate America, get my master's, all of the things. And in that time and in that process of becoming the first and striving and, trying to be all of the things that I felt that I needed to do, I can't even say I lost myself because I didn't even know myself at that point. But I got to a place in my early 20s or mid 20s where it all just came to a head. So in addition to, growing up in a space where, we lacked money, there was sexual abuse, there was emotional abuse, there was all the abuses, all the trauma, right? Big T and little t. And so I got to a place at 25 where externally, people who saw me, who knew me, they were like, oh, okay, Sabine's got it going on, because I was always ambitious. But inside, oh my gosh, the darkness that I lived with on the inside. And it got to a place at 25 where I decided, okay, I'm done. Like I came, I saw, I did not conquer, and now I'm leaving. And so, I planned out my last day. I laugh at it now and I chuckle, and I know it's not a funny thing, but I'm such a planner that even in that type of situation, I planned out. And it wasn't until the day before I cleaned my apartment, I got my paperwork ready for when they found me, and I was ready. I was done. I decided to have a conversation with God. And up until then, I had never really, I grew up Catholic. And so there was some seeds there, but never really knew that I believed it for myself. But I was like, okay, I'm going to tell you anyways. And so I started to have this conversation, and it was really more of a shouting match around me sharing my dissatisfaction for the life that I had been given. And that this, shouting match turned into, of course, straight bawling, into this place of final surrender, where I said two things. You know what? I'd be willing to stay here if I knew two things. One, that you were real, and two, that I had a purpose. And in that moment, Cynthia, and I've shared the story many times, and I always feel like it's so hard to explain to people, but I literally felt the arms of God wrap himself around me. And I knew, it was an internal knowing that he was responding, and that he was real, and that I had a purpose. Wow. So I fell asleep, bawled out that night, laid on the ground. I woke up the next day, and I was just like, okay, we're going to start again. And I'm going to get to know who I am, and I'm going to get to know my purpose. And that was about 15 years ago. And I've been on that journey since.
Well, what an incredible story. And I want you to know that I'm grateful that you're telling that story. I had a similar one. I was yelling at God saying, I didn't have a plan to leave, but I was definitely yelling. And I said, and if you're real, you better show me. And my phone rang. And so it was somebody that was there to support me. So I love that you're telling that, because here's the thing. Everybody gets to their divinity. Everybody gets to their spiritual connection in different ways. But I think it's important, because this is called Women Awakening, that when you awaken, that there's something that takes you into something beyond your physical state.
Yeah.
So I love that. And so what is your purpose?
I am still trying to figure that out. I think at the time, just because of the way again, planner, right? I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out what it is, and then I'm going to start moving towards it. So at the time, work was big for me. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to find purpose in work. I also had joined a church at the time. So I was just like, okay, well, maybe they have the answers to my purpose, right? And so here I was trying to navigate, right? I knew I had this question. I knew there was a purpose. I didn't know what it was, but I kept looking for it in things, right? Or in the roles that I was playing, or the identities that I had taken on. And it wasn't until 2016, I had gone back to school, got my master's, got this job opportunity, and was given 6 weeks notice that I had to leave Connecticut to move down to Houston for my first rotation. Now, I had lived in Connecticut my entire life, or since coming to the US. Everything. I had a condo, like all of my family, all of my relationships, my identity was wrapped up in Connecticut, even though it's not necessarily a great place to want to be in. But nonetheless, not that Connecticut is bad. I just don't like winter. That's all. That's what I mean from that. So if you have audience listeners thinking, oh, why is she bad mouthing Connecticut? It's not Connecticut. It's the Northeast and their Nor'easters. Yeah. But anyways, 6 weeks to literally uproot my entire life. And when I got this initial call, you go through okay, well, why me? Like, are you sure? Should I be doing this? And then I had the religious individuals who I thought were like my family members. They were all against it. And it was just like all of this opposition. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. But I kept hearing in my heart and in my soul, in that still small voice, that I'm calling you to this. And actually the scripture, if that's what you want to call it, that came to me was, man looks at the external, but God looks at the heart. And that is, yes. And that is the confirmation that kept coming back to me. So, I was scared. I was literally scared. And I was just like, okay, God, I'm going to step out, and I'm going to take this journey with you. And I remember also hearing that, you've learned about me through others, through man. Now we're going on this journey and you're going to learn about me for yourself. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I thought it was just about the job, right? Like, oh, okay, I'm going to learn what my purpose is in like this career. And it was not that at all. I did these three rotations over the course of 2 years, moved all around the country, started my business during that time frame. And throughout that process and throughout that journey, and even when I felt the leading to step outside of corporate America and to start my own business full time, there was still a part of me that was just like, okay, well, is the purpose in the business? Like, is this why you're calling me out? Like, I needed to know the thing. Here we are 15 years later. And if I can answer that question honestly, it really still is, I don't know. I'm saying I don't know, meaning that there's not one definitive answer,
Right.
meaning that this entire journey has been my purpose, meaning that me evolving to the place where I know who I am. I know who God is. I know the space that I get to take up in this world. I get to the people that I get to experience. Every situation that I've been in is all wrapped up in that. And so I'm no longer chasing this destination, right?
Right.
I'm
Right.
chasing the experiences along the way as okay, in this season on this day, this is my purpose. Tomorrow, it's going to look something completely different.
Well, it's evolutionary. So I love what you're saying. Ladies, I hope that you're listening because you said a few things that just kind of went da da da. It was and the first one was, that man looks outside and God looks at the heart. And that still small voice really is still in small. And so
Yeah.
you have to listen. And by the way, not everybody is going to love what you're doing because when spirit's leading you, it's not linear.
Yeah.
And I love that you don't know your purpose because it lives within you and it's evolving. And so I want to know about She Leads. What is that and what do you do?
Yeah. So She Leads Network was a call it a download that I got back in 2017. I found documents because I like to write everything down from 2017. And it was meant to be this network or this community where women, ambitious women, could come together, feel supported, get the professional development that they wanted so that they could continue to advance, step into who they are and their identities. Put it down because, I didn't believe I had what it took to, lead such a movement or a network. It came back around in 2019. And again, I was just like, okay, well, maybe it's women professionals now because originally I was going to focus on millennials because I'm a millennial. And then again, put it down because I was just like, I'm nobody. Like, who am I? Right. And then 2020 happened, right? And the world stopped, obviously. And not only was it about the pandemic and COVID-19 and all that other stuff, but what it really was the messages around women. So we saw women leaving organizations, right, because of other obligations. They became school teachers, they became nurses, they became all these things because they had to. The women who stayed in corporate America or organizations, they were being extra burdened with work, with, being empathetic to everyone and being the nurturers and the carers. Even in an entrepreneurial state, you saw that like women weren't getting access to capital for their businesses, right? And so it's just that it got to a point where like the voice was so loud that I couldn't ignore it anymore. And the world was seeing it, right? And so there was something in me that said, okay, God, like what is it about women? And so it started with two things. One, I got clear, or the clarity came to me around this concept called leadership. And in prior to that, I had identified leadership with your role, with your title, with your status, right? But God showed me, he was just like, actually, no, leadership is innate. You all have the capacity. You all have a
Mhm.
sphere of influence. It is part of your identity to be a leader. You are
Mhm.
made in my image, right? You are created in my image. And so I started to internalize that truth that I am a leader. And so once I started to internalize that truth that I was a leader, and I kept hearing all of the narratives around what leadership was or what it was not, it was almost like this thing came together. I was just like, I wonder how many other women out there don't believe they're leaders because they're not quote unquote in a leadership capacity.
Mhm.
I wonder how much of what we're seeing in the impact to women has to do with a lack of understanding of who they truly are. And so just asking those questions is where like things just started coming through. And so I finally decided to pick She Leads Network back up. And it's twofold. It's bringing women who either have awakened to the truth of who they are and their identity, the power that is within them. They may not know their purpose. They may not know what their sphere of influence is, but they have that desire to seek to know. This is the place where I'm creating for them to have that incubator, because I didn't have the incubator. I was out here with me and God. But I wanted to create the incubator, knowing what I know, knowing what I've gone through to help support them through that process. Or for the women who had maybe an inkling, right? But they weren't quite so sure. And they needed that, maybe not in this case, a still small voice, but they needed that reassurance that what you're feeling, what you're seeing, what you're thinking, what's happening inside of you, it's real. Even though your external environment shows completely different and the messages are different, that you are in fact a leader. And not only that you are a leader, you are a magnificent being. Like everything about you, there's no less than in this situation. And I don't operate from the standpoint of, men against women. It's no, they have their gifts and their talents. We have our gifts and our talents. And now the space that has been created in our society allows us both to operate. But if we don't believe that, then we're going to stay in a space where we are living less than who we should be and resenting, right, our counterparts versus
Right.
working collaboratively. So
Right.
She Leads Network is meant to be, leadership development, mindset, or mental fitness. We focus on building your social capital and your personal branding. So it's more so holistic around how do I advance and excel in my personal and my professional life.
Well, it's wonderful, and I love the vision, and I love that you stepped into it. But I want to know. Here you are out here, and you're in the pandemic, which a lot of us got creative in pandemic because you didn't have a choice because you're sitting there. But this stuff was coming through you. You were just following the lead. What did you do with the energy or the fears or the doubts that came in around, can I pull this off and take care of myself?
Yeah, lots of prayer. Lots of prayer and fasting. I share with people all the time that, no matter who you see on their mountaintops, right, there are valley moments. And even when they get to the mountain, guess what? For them to get to that next mountain, they're going to go down the valley. One of the biggest things that I learned in the process of leaving Connecticut and then leaving corporate America and then picking She Leads back up was this gift called courage. Right. Up until I had these instances, I knew well, maybe I didn't know what courage was. Well, it's one of those things that's thrown around all the time, like courageous. And I always associate it with like heroes, like people who do like really, really bold things. And it wasn't until I was getting ready to leave corporate America and God wouldn't let me, put it away. I remember walking my dog one day and I was just like, you know what? It would be easier for me to step out and do this if I had, at the time, it was like if I had like a roster of clients.
Hmm.
A voice came back and was like, well, that wouldn't be faith, would it? I was like, oh. It's like, touche. You are absolutely right. That would not be faith. And so it was in that moment that I started praying and asking for courage. I didn't even know what I was asking for. I just knew that I was afraid. I didn't have the answers. And I knew that if I could tap into something that was bigger than me or deeper than me, stronger than me, then I could continue to move forward in spite of the fear and the insecurity and the worry and the doubt. And that's literally what's been the catalyst for every move that I make, right? Because entrepreneurship is not easy. It's
Not for the
not
faint of heart.
it is not. It is not at all. And so even most days I am asking for courage. courage to hear those no's, right? When people don't want to sign up, courage to deal with clients, courage to just even show up and be visible. There was a time where I was just like, I just want to be behind the monitor and sharing my insight. I didn't want to be on camera. I
Right.
had to ask for courage to be able to do that. And so that's the thing that I've found. And it shows up in different ways and in different capacities to help me push past I think there is a quote out there that says, courage isn't the absence of fear, but it's the ability to move forward in spite of the fear.
Right. Well, I, I I just love it. You're inspirational. And I just want to tell you, I want to speak to that for a moment, because the way I found you was um, a service contacted me, which means that you invested in yourself. And entrepreneurs, a lot of times people don't understand the power of investing in yourselves in areas that are going to take you to another level. So how did you learn that? Because I know you're out here and you're trying to make things happen and stuff. And it's like, oh, now I got to invest. What prompted you into that arena so that you knew the importance of that?
Yeah. So when I was getting ready to leave corporate America and go into entrepreneurship, like I had been reading, I had been downloading all the freebies and doing all of that stuff, right? It just got to a place where it was overwhelming. And I think I just sat there. I wanted to be a coach, right? And I was like, Sabine, you want to be a coach, but you've never actually experienced coaching. I was like, okay, got it. Once I started looking at what are all of the pieces that are involved, I was just like, I don't know most of this. And so I invested in the coach the first time. And the reason being is because I knew that I didn't know what I didn't know. And even in corporate America, right? Like there's someone, there's a buddy, there's a mentor, there's someone that I always kept to help me advance. Why would I not do that? Coming into entrepreneurship on my own. And so investing in the coach to help me gain clarity, like having that experience was just like, oh, it's like light bulbs went off. And from that moment on, it was okay, now you want to learn sales and you want to learn all these other pieces. Because I made the mistake of, okay, well, I'm just going to figure this out on my own. Right. And then I learned that whole concept of like your time value return. And I was just like, oh, if I'm trying to charge this, and that's what my time is worth. What am I doing? What am I doing? So, and even in that, those were lessons that I learned through coaches. So for me today, I know that if there's something that I want to do, especially in my business, that either I can spend the time to learn it and to fumble through it till I get to mastery, or just like I did in any other area of my life, I look at who's doing what it is that I want to do or who has the resource that I want. Because if there's a desire in me to do something, that also means that there is a resource out there that can help me move along. And so moving away from that scarcity and lack of I don't have it and da da da, it's like it wouldn't even come into my awareness if the answer or the solution or the person or whoever. And so now my thing is really just, if I want to do something, like I wanted to expand my visibility and share my story, who in my, aura or whatever has that capacity to help support me in that. And that's why I invested in the service.
I love it. And I, I was very similar to you. I invested in a leadership program because I didn't know what I didn't know. And it was a life-changing moment. How do people find you?
Yes, thank you for asking. So you can connect with me on my website, SabineGedeon.com. Also hang out on LinkedIn. That is my hangout spot. So connect with me. The handle is Sabine Gedeon, all one word. And if you want to email me because you have questions, Sabine@SabineGedeon.com.
Beautiful. Well, I asked the same last question of all my guests. This show is called Women Awakening. What do you think is the one thing, the most important thing about women awakening on the planet at this moment?
Just one? Okay. I think it goes back to the thing that awoke me, right? Is that we all have a purpose that is greater. We're not just here to, live, work, have some babies, like take care. That's not what life is. Like we are created in the image of, the Alpha and the Omega, and we have all of the creative power in the universe within us. And so the awakening or the biggest truth for me has been just recognizing that, understanding that, receiving that, daring to let go of all of the other narratives that we have been fed throughout our entire lives.
That is beautiful. Well, Sabine, I am really happy to know you. I love your energy and your enthusiasm and your wisdom. And I love that you've created a space for women to come in and explore their own power and greatness. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Cynthia. It's been an honor. Thank you.
So, ladies, I'm going to say the same thing I say to you every week, and I always say it a little differently, but it's always the same message. This is your moment. This is your time. You are here for a divine purpose. You are here because your energy, your wisdom, your gifts, your talents are necessary. You are here to shine. So whatever's happening in your life, wherever you've been, whatever is going on, put your attention on allowing your brilliance and your light to come forward. Everything else will fall into place. I am so grateful to do this with you every week. I love you, and I will see you next week.